Where? Why? Welcome to the Headhunted Podcast. Motivation, inspiration, drive, hunger. For those who dare, for those who triumph. You were born to be Headhunted.
In recruiting, there are no good, no bad, no best, no worst experiences. They're just learning experiences. Today, I'm super excited to welcome our next host of the Headhunted podcast, who has probably experienced it all, at least in recruiting. Ladies and gents, after welcoming presidents of countries, CEOs of companies, agents of superstar players, opera singers, we're welcoming the guru of nowadays recruiting. Welcome to the 13th episode of the Headhunted podcast with the one and only Greg Savage.
Headhunted.
Oh, thank you very much. That is a very, very grand introduction. Presidents, heads of companies. I'm afraid your standards have dropped a great deal, but I'm grateful to be here. Thank you very much.
Hi, Greg. Plato once said, the harder you work, the luckier you get. Greg Savage once said, hire an attitude, not just experience and qualification. Today, we'll be talking about hiring, about the future of recruiting, about where and how to find the right talent, about how machines will help us to source and to find the right people, about where we are in recruiting in these COVID times. I'm pleased to welcome and I'm greeting all the way to Australia, Greg Savage. Greg, super excited to have you on board. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm very grateful to be here and I'm looking forward to chat to you now.
With a career spanning 4 decades, Greg is a founder of 4 highly successful businesses, is a trusted advisor and respected voice across the global recruitment and professional services, and a regular keynote speaker at conferences around the world. Greg has been 41 years in recruiting. Gosh, still cannot believe it, Greg. Has had 12 board appointments. His book, The Savage Truth, by the way, a must-read for all of recruiters, all the recruiters, has had over 10,000 sold copies, maybe even more now. And he's got, believe it or not, 315,000 LinkedIn followers. Impossible, unbelievable, great. Greg Savage is widely acknowledged as one of the most influential and engaging speakers on recruitment, social media branding, and leadership issues. Greg, impressive career. Truly great to have you here. Let me start with what's happening in the market question. In one of your latest newsletters, you have mentioned that recruitment agencies see massive job bounce back. I've looked up all the data, and it truly looks like it's bouncing back, while media are, at least here in Europe, are massaging us with all of the bad news. What's happening? There are talks about crisis, and still recruitment is picking up. I am head of one recruitment agency. We have more than ever open positions, while media are sending you a different message. What's happening in the market? How do you see it now?
Well, firstly, thank you for having me on your podcast. And, you know, I'm not sure if your audience is Europe-wide or international, but certainly as far as the Czech Republic is concerned, I've been there 3 or 4 times and always had a great time. And I've got a lot of friends there. So hello to them if they're watching. When you say the market, Mikhail, you need to define that because we are actually dealing with multiple markets. As I was saying to you off air just before we started recording, in New South Wales, which is the state I live in, which is where Sydney is, we have 10 million people. We haven't had a COVID case, not one infection, for 50 days. Wow. And the whole country hasn't had one for a month. Not a single case, right? So our life is 80%, 85% back to what it was like before COVID. Mm-hmm. We've still got borders closed, etc. New Zealand have only had about 100 cases in the whole crisis, right? Mm-hmm. So when you compare our situation to yours or the UK or America, they're all different markets. But what I can say is maybe what's going to be helpful is to look at what's happened in our country as we've come out of lockdown, because we had lockdowns, we've had several lockdowns, and the economy stalled and unemployment went through the roof, same as your countries, and a lot of depression and negativity. But once confidence started to return, even before all the restrictions were lifted, hiring bounced back. And there is a great lesson there, because those of you who are still in lockdown, and, you know, I've got a lot of friends in the UK, did a podcast there last night.
Right.
They're in lockdown, but they're busy, right? Like you say, they're busy. Companies are gearing up. And so I think what you can prepare yourself for is talent shortages. You see, the thing to remember, Mikhail, is if you had talent shortages before coronavirus in tech or healthcare or other areas, wherever it is, I don't know, you know, what it is in your country or your region, but if you had talent shortages, skill shortages, coronavirus didn't fix that. All it did was slow hiring for a period of time. But when we come out of this, companies will be panicked. They will want to get the best talent. They will realize they've over-pruned the tree. In other words, they've let too many people go. And what we're going to see is a big change in client behavior and candidate behavior. And I think the interesting part about our conversation tonight can definitely be it's going to recover. We've got a vaccine. It's going to recover. How can recruiters prepare? And because the pendulum's going to swing the other way, we're going to go straight into almost frenzied hiring. That's what we've seen in Australia and New Zealand.
Interesting. So have you guys done anything before the crisis or during the crisis that actually made you being prepared better for the massive hiring? And so what would you advise the agencies at this moment in Europe, especially to get ready?
Yeah, it's a good question. And you must remember it's 7:30 at night here, and that's
enjoy the wine,
time.
Greg. Enjoy the wine.
So I will work hard for you, but I won't change my habits. So,
cheers.
Great question. And you can learn from us, actually, because we didn't know it was going to be like this. And I know we're going to talk about this later, perhaps, but one of the things that I would encourage everyone to do is to say to yourself, yeah, coronavirus has been a pain in the ass. It's been terrible. It's been a disaster. But it is the best opportunity, and this is the message I'd send you. It's the best opportunity to reinvent your business that you have ever had. Right? You were shocked that I've been in recruitment for 41 years, and I think you were shocked because I'm still so good looking and young, and I understand that. But in 41 years, I've been through many recessions, but never one like this. So I can honestly say that this is so exciting. There's nothing good about coronavirus except that we're going to come out of it. And it's a chance to slaughter sacred cows. Now, this is an English phrase. It means all the things that we believed are true, let's examine, are they true? Do we have to do it this way? What can we do differently? What did we not like about our industry? Because now's the time to change it. So I think what you can expect is a W-shaped recovery. I mean, people talk about a V-shaped, we went down and we're going to boom. Well, we did. It's much better, but then we had another lockdown in Melbourne, and then something else happened, and so it's like this. It's upwards, but it's not going to be a nice straight line. So you've got to be very nimble. You still got to keep your costs low, and you've got to take every opportunity to say to yourself, how can I make sure? What I would say to people is, if you come out of the corona period and all you do is everything that you did before, you're missing the opportunity of a lifetime. You've got to re-examine everything, right? I mean, the sorts of people you hire, the technology you use, the way you pay recruiters, the market sector you're in. Now's the time to change it. To change your blend of permanent recruitment versus contract and temp recruitment. Now's the time to do it. What my companies that I'm involved in is, as you mentioned, I'm on the board of 12 recruitment companies. So that's a privileged position because I'm on the inside, so to speak,
right,
of all these companies doing great things. And they've all got great ideas. And also I talk to guys like you all over the world all the time. So I'm very fortunate, really. I'm the so-called expert, but actually I'm learning every day from everybody else. And some smart things they've done is to, and we can go into this in more detail later, but engineer technology that takes away the hack work from recruiters, which allows recruiters to engage more. Implement technology that gives a candidate a better experience. Now's the time to do it because we're going to be short of candidates again. Change your marketing strategy and invest more in digital and social marketing, for example.
Right.
Build it. right? I don't know what the shortages of talent in Czech Republic were, but I imagine there might be things like developers and
the usual IT,
UX design, usual things.
IT and health now.
Right. So now's the time to build your pipeline and your pool of talent, even though your clients are maybe not hiring, maybe they are, but now, we need to get ahead of the curve, build relationships with people. So this is what the smart companies are doing. And they're also spending a lot of time educating their clients because a lot of clients are going to think, well, it's been a recession. You must have lots of candidates and recruitment must be easy, they think. It's not. It's harder now than ever. And therefore, they're going to try and push our fees down. So we've seen that across Australia and New Zealand. Clients trying to push fees down. And a lot of recruiters in desperation have dropped their fees. And we don't want to do that. So that's just some thoughts for you about what's been going on.
You've talked about these fees in your book, The Savage Truth. You were discussing the danger of actually decreasing the fees. Right now in the market, as you can imagine, agencies are being asked to lower their fees. On basis of what would you suggest them to defend the fees, obviously based on quality and so on, but the competition is getting harder and harder, pushing the fees down, which is ultimately hurting the whole industry. What would you advise agencies to do?
It's a good question. The first thing about fees is, I think, for us to accept it's a mindset of the recruiter to believe that they provide value. It's very hard to negotiate your fee if in your heart you actually think you're too expensive.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you've got to believe that what we do has value, and we do provide value, right? So then the second thing you've got to think about is, what is it I provide clients that they can't get themselves? And if you cannot answer that question, then your fees will be pushed down. Now, the things that we can do that clients can't do themselves is access hard-to-find candidates and bring them to the hiring table. That basically is why we get paid. If it was easy to find, and you know what, I had recruiters in Australia say to me, Greg, 6 months ago we had no clients, and now we've got no candidates. We've just swapped one bad thing for the other bad thing. And I have to restrain myself because I say to them, listen, guys, you've got no idea. No jobs to fill is the beginning of the end. It's like a person with no food. You will die.
All right.
No candidates just means there is no such thing as no candidates. There are candidates. It just means that it's even more reasons clients will pay us, because if it's difficult to find candidates, then the job of the recruiter is to become the world champion of finding candidates. Right? So you said some recruiters find it hard to justify their fees. Well, that's because some of them have nothing to offer. But if you do have access to candidates and the ability to negotiate and bring those candidates to the hiring table, and also the other thing you have to offer is insights and advice, then clients will pay. So my advice to recruiters is sit down around the table on the Zoom or whatever it is and work out what your differentiators are.
Right.
What you've got to get the conversation. If you're a client of mine and you say to me, Greg, your fee's 20%, it's too high. Somebody over there is charging 15. If I talk to you about percentage, I'm going to lose because 15 is less than 20. You've got to move the conversation away from percentages and dollars or euros, whatever it is. Move it away from that and get it on to value. What is our differentiators? We've been operating in this market for 15 years. We have access to candidates. We have these things. So it's got to be real. It doesn't have to be some piece of technology like fucking inventing an iPhone or something. It just needs to be true differentiators that you can say to your clients, this is why my fee is the way it is. And we also need to educate clients that recruitment is harder in this market. And it is, because candidates are reluctant to move. I can tell you what else is going to happen. Let me predict for your guys. You are going to get more counter offers than you've ever seen in your whole life as this improves. You're going to have counter offers. I promise you, we're seeing it everywhere that we're marketing.
Interesting.
Because so now a lot of recruiters don't have the skill, Mikhail, to handle that conversation. They don't start the conversation at the beginning of their relationship with the candidate. And what's happening is candidates are coming to the recruiter, they're getting a job, they're accepting the job. Their employer now knows in our market that there's no candidates. So they throw money at them.
Right.
So a lot of recruiters are doing a lot of, and not only that, here's another piece of insight, I hope. Candidates, their behavior has totally changed. They are ghosting. You know the phrase ghosting?
Yes. You cannot hear. You don't hear from them.
You don't hear from them, right? Usually used in a personal or a romantic situation. But candidates are ghosting recruiters. They are saying, I'm going to turn up for the job on Monday and just disappearing, right? Mm-hmm. So there's this change of behavior. I'm not sure of the psychology behind it, but the recruiter who can find the candidate and bring that candidate to the hiring table and manage the interaction so the person starts, they should put their fees up, not down. And we need to be articulate to explain to the clients our value. So that's the conversation I'd be having if I was in your position.
I'm glad we are having this topic because technology and the role of recruiters. Amazon has introduced the idea of a hiring manager and a candidate, and they're not talking about the recruiters as important stakeholders as recruiters used to be. And you're talking about that in the book as well. By the way, I've read the book in Barbados. I did not even know you at that time. It was recommended me to some friends and so on. A fantastic book, really. Once again, a really good book. And you're talking about technology, and especially for sourcing, especially for finding talents and so on. Where do you see the role of the recruiter? Because our group is investing millions of euros into direct sourcing, technological advanced mechanisms to find people faster and so on. What's the role of recruiter in 5 years?
I'm glad you asked me this question. Get ready, my friend, because I have some opinions on this. I have a lot of opinions about recruitment, and sometimes they're even right, but sometimes not. But you've got to remember, again, you mentioned when I started in recruitment in January 1980, you were not even born. Maybe you were a baby.
I was 2 years old.
2 years old, right?
Yeah.
So January 1980, I started in recruitment. What do you think was on my desk that day?
Probably a computer. No, I'm kidding. Paper and a pen.
A telephone. It was plugged into the wall. Mm-hmm. A yellow pages. You know what a yellow pages is?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
The telephone book, because that was our database. And you know what the third thing was, mate? An ashtray. Because in 1980, everybody smoked. Everybody smoked in 98. Candidates and recruiters smoked at the desk. Not me. I was into cocaine, obviously, but everybody else smoked. Now, the reason I tell you that story is just to say that in 40 years, the amount of times people have said to me, this piece of technology is going to kill recruiters. It was job boards at first.
Oh, interesting. Mm-hmm.
It was LinkedIn was going to kill us. We never made more money since LinkedIn came along. It was social media was going to kill us. It was Google was going to kill us. You see, I get pitched every week some piece of technology from people who want my opinion or need to invest, but they really wanted me to say it's a good idea. And mostly, people do not understand where the value of recruitment is. Of course, recruitment will change. And of course, the money spent on automated sourcing, for example, screening,
right,
even interviewing,
yes,
scheduling, all these things will get far more automated. Absolutely. But none of them have got anything to do with where the value of recruitment is. Finding people on the internet is the easiest fucking thing to do. It's got no real, it's important. Finding them is not difficult. Hiring them is difficult, right? Approaching them is difficult. Bringing them into the hiring process. If there's a shortage of candidates, do you think, all over the world today, you've got recruiters sending emails which are not being ignored on LinkedIn, right? So they know where the people are. They just can't engage with them. So the role of the recruiter in the next, you said 5 years. Here's my prediction. And I'll be drinking champagne on the beach in Barbados too in 5 years. So you'll have to track me down to prove me wrong. But the role of the recruiter will be more important. Big chunks of the role are going to be automated. Anything that can be predicted will be automated. But can you get a machine, Mikhail, that's going to counter a counter offer? When you've got a machine that can turn a candidate around who's accepting a counter offer, then our industry is history. And do you think that's going to happen soon? I don't.
Probably never.
So the value of exactly. So the value of the third-party recruiter is, in fact, and this is the important part that I've been building up to in a very long-winded way, the value of the recruiter is in their influencing skills, their advisory skills, their consulting skills, their persuading skills, their evaluating skills, the ability to build credibility, right? So I'm a recruiter and you're a recruiter. I could contact the candidate and the candidate could say, no, I don't want to talk to you. You could contact them, much more subtle, better conversation, more credibility, arrange a coffee, have a conversation. 6 months later, you've placed them. Show me the machine who can do that, mate. And then we're history.
That leads us to the important skills that you've but you've built over, those 41 years. You have had enormous success, right? Without any hesitation, we can say that you impact and you influence the industry. As you said, you're being pitched ideas and you're being asked for your opinion and so on. There are professionals, Greg, and including myself, who look at you and who say, well, he is, 41 years. No, I wouldn't say 41. You really look young. Who would say, I want one day, I won't be like Greg, right? At his age, I want to advise people. I want to motivate people. I want to lead these people. What would your advice be to young people like me right now to build their skills, to build their expertise, so one day they can talk and influence and impact the industry?
Right. Well,
what have you done correctly?
Okay, look, first of all, if you read my book, which you've done,
yeah,
you would know that, and I'm very honest in that book, I made a lot of mistakes, and more mistakes than success. But being successful in life, if you're going to put yourself at the edge, if you're going to try things, you are going to make mistakes. And we're learning from them and adjusting the target, right? So I think there's a few things. First of all, I don't think I'm that bloody important or special or anything else at all. And it's funny, you're talking to me in my house, and I've got a 20-year son a few doors away. If he heard you say those things about me, he would just laugh. So, it's all a matter of perspective. But I think a couple of things I'd say when I look back. I was very fortunate that I fell into recruitment at age 21 because I fell into a job that was perfect for my personality. I'm competitive. I like to hit goals. I can interact with people well. And that was luck. I didn't even know about the industry when I started. I think hard work. I do work hard. And right? I did 100 webinars last year like this, 100 in 2020. And yet when you wrote to me, we had 20 emails before I was happy that it was ready to go.
Yes.
So I work, even though it's clear that I can do this without preparation, I do my preparation. I work hard at the things that are important. I think I have a fear of failure, which drove me. I didn't want to fail all through my life. So often I wasn't doing that well, but I was driven by that. I think in business, I was a recruiter and I've been involved in recruitment, but really I'm a business builder, I suppose. It sounds like a very grand word, but I run my own businesses. And I think taking calculated risks is part of it. You got a plan. I think business is made up, success in business is made up of a character. You need to have hardworking, ethical, resilient, all those things. Second thing is a strategy. But the third thing is implementation. You've got to get on and actually do it. And I think, as I said, you read the book, I failed a lot. But the things I did do well was I took those risks. A lot of them didn't work. But the ones that did work, man, they worked. Right? I had some big success. And linked with that is hiring great people. If I had something that worked well is I've hired a lot of people that didn't work out or didn't like me or whatever it was, like we all do. But I've hired mostly I hired people who are better than me.
Right.
And I've got a big ego, but my ego is not so big that I don't realize it's better to hire people better than you around you. And I've done that. And a lot of those people have come on a journey with me and we've had a lot of success, and some of them have started their own businesses. The other thing I'd say to you, is you need to guard your reputation. Right? And this is advice for anybody starting in recruitment or any business. Every interaction you have with clients or candidates or colleagues either enhances your reputation or diminishes it. So when you don't return a phone call, when you're a bit rude to somebody, if you keep somebody waiting, if you overpromise and underdeliver, you're harming your reputation. And you might think when you're 22 or 25 or even 40 that it doesn't matter. It does matter. Because over time, if you build a reputation, people will trust you. People will come to you. People will refer you. And you know, I think I've said this to you. I can't remember. I've done a lot of webinars. But I can walk down the street and people come up to me and they say, hey, I like your blog. And I go, great. You know, I get all quite sort of proud. And then they go, I don't agree with you, but I like the fact that it is authentic. I know when I read your blog or if I watch your video that you're telling me what you really think. And in this day and age, that's what people want. They want authenticity, right? And so if you can build a reputation for that, you don't have to be right, but you have to be passionate and you have to be authentic. And none of us are right all the time, obviously. So I think your reputation, now I say this to youngsters, you know, when you leave this job, the only thing you're going to take with you, unless you steal a computer or something stupid, the only thing you're going to take with you is your reputation. That's your golden ticket. And you can enhance it every year, regardless of the, and even in COVID, when everyone's locked down, I was saying to everyone, get on the phone, speak to people, call people, offer support. Ask a candidate if you can help them with their resume. Give them training on their LinkedIn profile. You know, build goodwill, because that's where the value comes. So those are some of the things. There's a few more, but those are the most of the things.
Well, we had internally, for example, a discussion whether a company can or should control its employees' LinkedIn, being a professional network, because what's the most valuable for the company is the reputation. Right? What do you think about that?
Here's the thing. People say to me, I'm not going to help my consultant build their online brand because they might go to a competitor.
And you talk about it in the book.
Do I?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. You know, you've got to help them build their brand because that's going to help build your company. And then as a separate issue, build a company where people want to stay and work for you.
Exactly.
That's a separate issue.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to work on developing people's skills and treating people with respect and all the things that create a great environment. But why would you be so dumb as to say, it's like cutting off your foot? You know, I can't think of a good analogy. There must be great ones, but it's the stupidest thing. You do need to help people build their connections, build their network, because that's the modern way. You know, those recruitment companies that are trying to just do cold calling and everything, you know, it's soul destroying and people get no success. We need to build online brand, and we can convert it into in real life communication, of course, but we need to help people do that and then create a company where they want to work.
Greg, based on, you mentioned that we've exchanged a lot of emails, the preparation took some time. You and the president of Slovakia took the longest time to prepare and also the hardest. And also our interaction, you don't take shortcuts. You don't believe in shortcuts. You really believe in hard work, right? What do you teach your 20-year-old boy now?
Well, I've got 3 children, and my 2 sons, well, actually only one of them is at home. Look, the thing is, do you have children?
Yes, 3.
Yeah, 3. What age?
10, 9, and 3.
Okay, you're going through the years when they think dad is God. They listen to you, they love you, they copy you.
Yeah.
Just wait, mate. Just wait. My son was looking to change his job, right? And I said to him, hey, I know a little bit about this. Would you like me to help you with your resume or your preparation for your interviews? No, he doesn't want my help. People all over the world want to listen to me on this topic, but not my son.
Right.
I think what I have taught them is the things I hope, and it's not just me, it's my wife, it's my family, is things like you've got to work to get the outcome. You need to understand that resilience means bouncing back, that it's not always going to go your way. I think that's important. You've got to be careful because you need to support your children and your employees when it's time, but also occasionally you need to just brush them down and say, back in. You know, certainly with sport, that was my kids are very big on sport. And, you know, unless their legs were actually broken, I wasn't that interested in their injuries. So that's maybe I'm not going to win Father of the Year. But I think resilience, you teach them the value of treating people with respect. The biggest telling off I ever gave my son was when we were at a restaurant. He was only about 9, and the waitress came and put the food down, and he didn't look at her. He just kept on talking. And I said, you got to understand that person's working hard for you, and that all work is honorable, and you do not just keep talking. You look at her, you say thank you. And he didn't really get it. He was like, but Dad, I was telling you a story, and I don't care. So you might say that's overreaction, but I think they treat people with respect. I think they treat people with honesty, and then they are their own people. You can just give them values. You can't. They're adults, right? So they will go their own way.
Well, I'm always asking. Every evening I ask my kids before we have a dinner, obviously, we thank for our dinner and we do the thank round here, but also ask them, what have you screwed today? What have you tried to do? We started this exercise a few weeks ago, and it's wonderful to, the way they're thinking about it, and they're actually looking at failures as a success.
It's very interesting you say that, because my father used to do that. Actually.
Interesting.
And he used to ask, like if something had not gone well, he'd say, well, how are you going to, when's the next time you can try that? And he would never push, but he would say, when, and then he would ask again a few days later, when has that come up? And sometimes he'd say simple things like, we heard this word on the radio, you didn't know what it meant, I explained it to you. Have you used that word? Tell me when you're going to use that word. And I treated it as a game, but he was really teaching. So I think that those are the roles of. I think one of the parent's role is an extremely complex one, but a coach is part of it, and certainly a good manager, a good leader, is an exceptional coach. Your job is training is different to coaching, and I know we're getting off the topic. I'm sorry, but I'm very passionate about that. A good leader is a coach, usually in real time, right? Like the best time to teach someone is at the point of failure or the point of success, because they're very focused. So that's the time to coach a person. And in recruiting, it works incredibly well. If somebody's just handled a situation badly on the phone, that's the time to coach them in real time, not to humiliate or embarrass, but talk it through, and they will come up with a better way of doing it, and they'll never forget it. But if you take them to a training room out in the suburbs, or something, 2 months later, it's not as good, right?
Well, nothing is off the topic with the Headhunted podcast, because actually it took me 2 years to create this idea, because I didn't want to come up with anything that would be already in the market and so on and so on. And I would like something that's connected to coaching and psychology and other things. Greg, 41 years. You having fun, I guess?
Well, actually, I would say in the last 10 years, I've had more fun than I've ever had, and I've had a lot of fun. But the difference is, it's an evolution, right? I was a young guy when I started in recruitment. I was 21. I started my own business when I was 27. And we built that business to 60, 70, 80 million. It wasn't only me, trust me. It was a lot of people. We built it to 60, 70, 80 million. And we floated it on the Australian stock market. I was still young. And then I worked with Acorns, and I had 5 offices in Australasia, and we built it to 35 offices around the world, including Prague. And Warsaw, and all of which I went to many times. And so I've had a wonderful journey. But when you're a CEO or you're recruiting, you're right in it. What I've been lucky enough to do now, and what I still enjoy, and why I still do this, as I said, I'm on the board of 12 recruitment companies. That's hard work, but I love it because mostly those people are your age or a bit younger, and they've done well. But they want to take their 50-person recruitment company to 150.
Right.
And they don't know how, right? And there I am, who has done it. And between us, we collect, and it's fun. I can see their success. I can be part of it. But I don't have to actually do the difficult things like I did all those years ago, So that's fun, and I love it.
Well, using your knowledge and everything that you've gained in the past to create good structures for them to take and think about and so on, good thought processes. Can we talk about job boards right now? Because you mentioned job boards, you mentioned LinkedIn. Where do you envision the future of job boards as a source of candidates for companies, for recruiters, and so on? Because everybody's talking about job boards' purpose to be diminishing. Now it's becoming more as a database of people. Where do you see the whole industry? Now we are sourcing from LinkedIn, we're sourcing from job boards like Monster.com, Indeed, and so on. Can you collaborate on that?
Well, look, I'll approach this from a couple of points of view. The first is, I would say to anyone listening to this, if you're a recruiter and you rely on job boards and LinkedIn as your only or primary source of candidates, you're in big trouble. Because if you're sitting in Prague and you get your candidates from LinkedIn or job boards, I can also go to those same job boards, the same LinkedIn, and from Sydney, I can find the same candidates. So therefore, you have got no competitive advantage over me, which is ridiculous. So now that's not to say that LinkedIn and job boards are not important. They should be part of a cocktail of tactics that you use to access candidates. But increasingly, I'd encourage recruiters to find ways to get hold of candidates outside of that. Think of it like this. If you get a candidate from a job board, by definition, that candidate is not unique to you. Might be a great candidate, going to be with other recruiters and applying direct. And that means the chance of you placing them is small. If you build relationships, we've got to change our definition of what a candidate is. That's my best advice. Most recruiters think a candidate is someone who's applying for a job. That is not the definition of a candidate. A candidate is somebody who has the skills that your client would hire. Whether they're looking for a job or not is unimportant. It's just a matter of timing. They will be looking for a job. So you need to be taking a longer term view than recruiters traditionally have and build relationships with people way before that, so that when they look for jobs, they come to you. And when they come to you, you're the only, and you can act as their agent and represent. And then it comes into that question you asked me about fees. If you have candidates that are what I call unique candidates that only you represent, the clients will pay your fees. I mean, they've got to be good candidates, obviously, but the clients will pay your fees because you'll be bringing something unique. So that's one angle. It's not the question you asked, but I wanted to get that in. I think job board, people say the influence of job boards is diminishing. The traditional structure of a job board is becoming less valuable, and they know that. Trust me. The job board that dominates our country is Seek, and they are evolving rapidly. So their real competition is LinkedIn, I would say.
Right.
They're building databases, they're building AI that tells you when a candidate, and you pay extra to find out which candidates have been updating their resumes, and they will evolve and they will create databases of people that recruitment companies will pay for. But still, you don't want to rely on the same pond that everyone else can pay to go for. Right? You've got to use it. But I actually encourage my clients to reduce their spend on job boards and LinkedIn and increase their spend on social sourcing, building brand, event marketing, ways of getting relationships with people before they're looking for the job.
Yes.
And it's very hard to get owners of recruitment companies to think like that because everyone is short-term thinking in our industry, including me. There is no one in this world who has said more than me. How many placements have you made this month? How many clients? I've said that more than anybody in 40 years. But you evolve and you realize that there's a long game that has to be played.
Got it. Well, thank you. Greg, two last questions that I always asked. There are different types. Like I asked the president of Slovakia what is the other country he would like to lead. I asked the opera singer where she would like to sing, and so on and so on. I have two questions with this in this scope. One is there a person you would love to headhunt? You would like to find a living person. I do not think about somebody who's died. And then on the other hand, whom would you like to have a client that you don't have at this moment? Your dream client.
I saw those questions, but I didn't think about them much. I'm going to answer them now. Many, many years ago, when I was recruiting on the desk, I placed an Ethiopian refugee in Australia into a job after he had been turned down after 50 interviews. And you asked me who I'd like to place again. I would like to place somebody like that again. I have no interest in famous people. I'm not a fanboy. I couldn't give a shit.
Mm-hmm.
To me, the best fun would be finding someone a job who can make a contribution to a company who the world was disadvantaging in some way. That I still remember that placement. It's one of the proudest things I've ever done. And I followed that guy's career, and he did very well. And, you know, I've never spoken to him again. I'd like to do that again.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of the company, I don't have any company I particularly admire at all.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of, you know, the companies I admire, I lose faith in them when I actually deal with them, like Apple. You know, great product, maybe, but when you try to get some help, you know, and most companies are like that, particularly technology companies. They're so in love with their own technology, they forget that it's people who buys the bloody stuff.
Right.
And they should wake up to themselves. Anyway, I'm getting on my bandwagon there. The any company that works in partnership with me takes my advice so I can help them get the best talent and grow. That's my ideal client. So it's not the answer you were looking for. I'm sorry, but I don't think the same way. I don't have any. I'm not really a follower. Sorry.
That's absolutely fine. And the second question, if you were to disappear tomorrow and you would leave 2 notes on a piece of paper for the next generations, you can have the next generations of recruiters also and people. What would be these 2 thoughts?
Yes. Again, if I leave tomorrow, I just hope my family remembers me. I don't care about the rest. They will move on. But I think there's 2 things I'd say to people. Number one is, and I've said it already, but I'll say it again because it's so important. Protect your reputation. What people think about you. Not, is he a nice guy or is he good looking? Not that. Is he reliable? Does he do what he says he's going to do? Can I trust him? Is he authentic? Is he a man I want or a woman I want on my side? The biggest advice I get to anyone in recruitment and in life, and I've told my sons this, is guard your reputation. And your reputation is made up of the moments of truth in life, and the moments of truth are the way you make people feel. That's what your reputation. It's not what you do. It's not, you know, in sports, it's the guy who scored all the goals or whatever. But in life, it's the person who made you feel valuable. It's the person who gave you 5 minutes of mentoring when they didn't have to. That is what you need to do.
That's
number
strong.
one. Number two, I mean, I think it's so important. And I know I've upset as many people as I've helped over the years, but mostly I've found in time as I've mellowed and I've understood life better and I've become more grateful myself, that you realize that your job is actually not to make yourself bigger, but to help other people. And it's rewarding, but also it's what, at the end of the day, you ask what, you know, if I die tomorrow and if I keep on drinking like this, I probably will. But, you know, I don't think that anyone's saying he was some big recruiter to be important. But if somebody said, you know, I asked him a question and he took time to help me and he treated me with respect, you know, I hope that would be what they would say. That's much better.
Strong.
So that's, I'm not sure if they would. I'm not perfect. I'm far from it. But, you know, and I've upset a lot of people along the way. But the other thing is this, and this is also very important. It's about being in tune with yourself. When things are going well, we tend to believe our own PR. And when things are going badly, we tend to have our confidence crushed. So the big advice I would say to people is you are almost never as good as you think you are, and you're almost never as bad as you think you are. Continuous improvement. 5% improvement every day, every month, every year is what you should strive at. Don't be taken in by your success. Success is temporary. You've got to keep working at it. Don't be destroyed by your failure just because someone can't recognize your ability at that moment in time. Does not mean you don't have ability. So don't get too big for your boots and don't put yourself down. Have perspective on yourself. Very few people have good perspective on themselves. You gave me a big glowing introduction. I know I'm just a bloody average unemployed recruiter from Australia that's got a lot of experience and a big mouth. That's basically it.
Wonderful. That's strong. That really resonates with me, Greg. Yeah, it's powerful, very powerful. Something that I believe in myself. Helping people especially, it came with age. And maybe with children, not sure when it came, but it's at the end of the day. I was just talking to a friend of mine yesterday. I was like, "Oh, I'm happy I helped you," and that's it.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting dynamic, but it's funny how there are people in this world whose whole perspective is, "What can I get out of everything?" And then there are others whose first response is, "What can I give?"
Right.
And
right.
I don't feel I'm in either camp. I think I've worked hard. And it's a lot easier to be less selfish when you have most of the things. I am a lucky man, a fortunate man. So, I don't want to take any credit for it at all. Mm-hmm. But I think as you mature, I think small things can make a huge difference to somebody. And if that ability to provide that small thing, a complimentary word, a bit of support, an introduction, we should do it. We should do it as often as we can with no expectation of reward. That I believe is the sign of a more evolved human being.
Thank you, Greg. And let me end with saying you're an inspiration. I was looking forward to this talk. I hope the audience enjoys listening and watching the talk as well. Your inspiration. Continue with what you're doing, inspiring people.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Very much. I really appreciate your time. I'm going to put my commercial, The Savage Truth. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you can see it there.
Yes, we can.
You can get it off my website, gregsavage.com. By the way, I plug this book, not because I make any money. I give all the proceeds to charity. Not that there's that much, but I give it to charity. But I believe that it helps people in recruitment. You've read the book, you know what I'm talking about. I believe it can help people. So I really would love people to read it. But thank you for having me.
It was a pleasure. To the audience, I read, 2 books per week. I read a lot. Your book is really on the topic one of the best I've read. So I recommend everybody to go buy it, read it, borrow it, because it's quite inspirational. And by the way, we didn't get to the topic of the Aquans fail and then you bouncing back and so on. Maybe on the next podcast. It's an interesting story of Greg being super psyched and excited and opening offices and suddenly, everything going and shutting down.
Yes, well, I mean, you mentioned that time, but I've actually done that several times of getting ahead of myself and believing in my own PR and then finding I wasn't as good as I thought I was. But you get better. And actually, that experience helped me in coronavirus to advise my clients. I actually, during the 2020, felt more valuable to my clients than I've ever felt before, because a lot of them had never seen anything like this. And I'd never seen coronavirus, but I'd seen a lot of recessions.
All right.
So that was helpful. But look, thank you for having me on your podcast. I hope, you said to me at the beginning, if you make any mistakes, we can re-record them. I think I made a lot of mistakes, but I'm not re-recording them.
We're absolutely fine. Greg, expect an invitation to come to the Czech Republic once everything is open and helping us to actually do something great.
I would love to. I love the beer there. Mm-hmm. And, for me, I know you live in Prague, do you?
Yes.
Yeah. So for you to walk along those cobbled streets and to see those 400-500-year-old buildings that you don't even take notice of, well,
right.
For us, it's like another world. So I love it.
So we'll do that. The audience, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. You can find us on theheadhunted.com, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, you name it. Thank you again, Greg. Great to have you. Thank you and cheers and enjoy the wine. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Headhunted.